Hi. Well, one time in college, my best friend and I drove across the border so that we could see Niagara Falls from the Canadian side. It was the first time I had left the United States. And the next time wasn't until 2003, but it was starting to feel like a bit of a time crunch because I was going to turn 31 that year, and I'd made this promise to myself that I would see something of the world while I was still 30. It wasn't that I was sheltered. I mean, not exactly. I was raised by really conscientious parents in Nebraska. We had our weekly reading at school, and we had stacks of National Geographic in our basement. And my parents were really committed to having intimate experiences with the other, whether that was backpacking in nature, or attending a friend's bar mitzvah, or inviting the newly arrived Thai refugee family for dinner in our home. So things happened, but I had this ache to really see it and feel it for myself. Do you know what I mean? So I moved to California in the late 90s, and probably like a lot of us, I was fascinated by all things Eastern, like the kitschy Asian art and various forms of meditation. And I had really taken to kirtan, Indian chanting, and I knew that I had to see India. And fortunately for me, I had a really good friend, Dave, who was very generous and extremely patient and insanely well-traveled, and he agreed that he would take me. So we went to Thailand first for a few days so Lauren could kind of get her developing world sea legs. And then we landed in Calcutta, and it was dusk when we got there. And from the back seat of the cab, Dave pulled out of his backpack an MP3 recorder, which he proceeded for the next few months to log Lauren and India interviews on.
Oh my God.
So the first one went something like this. Okay, Lauren, what's happening? Long pause. I'm crying. Why are you crying? It's just such a relief to kind of see it, to just be here and, oh my God! Lauren, tell our listening audience what's happening now. There's a herd of goats walking in front of the taxi. Well, India got real fast. I had dinner that night and was struck with my first case of Delhi belly, which meant that I was navigating the plumbing, or so-called plumbing, of the trains and the restaurants and the open fields. And from there, we went to the silent meditation retreat and weeks of Buddhist study groups. The whole thing was just this kind of tornadic frenzy of Lauren feeling complete glee and total terror. And there was a day when Dave came upon me in the guest house. I was lying face down on the cool cement floor in a puddle of tears and snot. And he wisely observed and said, "Oh, Lauren, you came all the way to India and brought yourself." Indeed. So what was I looking for, really? I mean, in this country that was so different from my own, so steeped in this caste system that, in my eyes, appeared really unjust. This culture that was like an economy, an ecology that was simultaneously creating and destroying and creating and destroying, and these emaciated women were coming up and begging me for money. And then these robed monastics were shoving me out of the way so they could get onto the train first. And then crowds of people were clearing the sidewalk to give the sacred cow girth. And then these men would walk by and make eye contact with me, innocently asking me for the time, only to grab my breast as I walked by. What was this all about? And then one day, Lenny, a friend from the meditation community, invited us to visit Asupur Leprosy Hospital. He volunteered and worked there for portions of the year. And I was working as a hospital chaplain in California, so I was really keen to see how India took care of its ill. And and then there's just kind of the obvious thing, right? It's leprosy. I mean, it's downright biblical. I had to see it. So as we got there, Lenny has this glimmer in his eye, and he says, "Guess what today is?" We shrugged. We had no clue. Well, it's the first day of the month, and on the first day of the month, the residents get their new bar of soap. And today, it's soap day. Would you like to pass it out? We took to our task with delighted diligence, handing each resident his or her bar of soap. It was such a simple act, but it was met with great joy. The residents would often clasp their stumped hands together in that namaste gesture, ready to receive this offering from us. They would smile, free of shame, and so happy to be having this genuine exchange with people who were not calling them untouchable. And it was right about then that I saw her. She was sitting on this stoop outside, sunning herself. Her silver hair was pulled back. This red headscarf was slipping behind her. She was no exaggeration, about half my size, with the tiniest bones and facial features. I reached out to her. She instantly took my hands. She had these Coke bottle bottom lenses that she peered through. I smiled. She positively beamed. My smile grew larger, attempting to match the size of her benevolence. She could have been 1,000, but she was probably more like 65. And for no reason, we started laughing. Just laughing. Like a babbling brook, it drew the attention of others, but I was riveted. I could not take my eyes off this woman. She was a goddess. She was 10,000 grandmothers. She was the Buddha. She was this giddy, crazy, loving crone who was embracing me and cosmically dissolving all at once. Dave came over and brought these sweets that we'd purchased on our way over, and I took one and I placed it on her tongue. And without missing a beat, she took it off her tongue and she popped it into my mouth. Still laughing, I gave her a hug. I stood up from the stoop, and this whirling dervish of an instant was coming to an end. I could feel it, and my rational mind came rushing into my head. It was the part of me that had attended just a few too many hospital employee in-services on infection control. My teeth were sinking into this sugary sweet, and the voice in my head said, "You can't eat that! A leper put that on your tongue, and you don't know when the last time was that she washed her hands. What are you doing?" So I gently took the mouthful and offered it to the gods in the bush, still laughing. And my ego wondered in that moment if I was totally smart or completely paranoid. And in retrospect, it was definitely the latter. About 12 miles from this leprosy hospital is Banarsi. It's the sacred city where Hindus bring their dead and burn them on funeral pyres and offer them to the Mother Ganges River. The ferrymen get in their boats in the morning before dawn, and they offer their incantations to begin the day. Rowing across her sacred waters, they cry, "Mahadev! Mahadev! Great goddess," they call out, invoking her name. You want to try it with me? Mahadev! So maybe it's just that from time to time, our souls have to travel to these distant places that feel so foreign and so different, only so we can circle around to that place where we are universally connected and reminded again that we are all in the arms of our mother. Thank you.